Hey folks, in this video I'm going to talk to you about how much it costs to move to Portugal. Now this is not going to be your end-all be-all, but this is going to give you hopefully some idea and some value as some things you can consider. Now I'm basing this off of my own personal experience. If you've moved to Portugal, if you want to share your experience in the comments, I'm sure that would be helpful to other people who want to make the transition. But again, this is just going to be based on me coming from the US to Portugal. If you're coming from another country, obviously things are going to be different as it relates to visa and everything like this. As normal, I got my notes here. I'll follow along with you in the presentation, but there's a couple things I want you to consider. Now, in my personal case, I got rid of everything, so I didn't have to worry about a moving company. I have no idea what you do if you're trying to move your stuff from one country to another, so unfortunately I don't have that information. I'll try to get it for you, but that wasn't my thing. So I still made money in the US, so that makes things a bit different. If you are trying to move to Portugal first and you don't have a job, I personally don't recommend that. Okay, so the things you should consider are your apartments or lodging, transportation, food, medical, and your visas. So as far as apartment and lodging, I took the advice of what a friend told me, and that was to not commit to a long-term lease when I first get there. So I stayed in Airbnbs, and I pretty much switched Airbnbs weekly. For the first 4 months of me living there, was it 4 months? Something like that. I basically would move every 2 to 3 weeks into a different neighborhood just so I can get a feel of what neighborhood I liked. The other good thing about moving to different neighborhoods is that you start to figure out what amenities you want. Like, do you want to be walking distance from the grocery store? Or do you want to be close to the parks or the beach or whatever? You can kind of figure that out when you're doing short-term rentals and figure out what's important to you. So if you're interested in doing something like that, the benefit of it is that it's already furnished. You don't have to worry about setting up utilities or dealing with getting water and stuff hooked up into your apartment, particularly when you don't speak the language. I did not speak Portuguese. I am still bad at it now, but I'm working on it. So moving from one country to another is already stressful, and when you have to deal with utilities and hooking them up, like, nobody wants to deal with that. But if you get something that's already furnished, you can that part is alleviated, so you don't have to worry about it. So that's what I would recommend. Naturally, you do whatever floats your boat because you are grown. The cost to figure that out is really just going to Airbnb and look at some of the apartments that you would be interested in, that have the amenities you want, the bedrooms, the square footage, and just multiply that by 4 weeks to 3 months, however long you're going to do the short-term living in the apartments. Now, a way to kind of determine how much that costs, you can literally go on Airbnb. They usually would do deals if you're going to stay somewhere for a month, but you don't have to. You can go to Airbnb and kind of price out how much it will cost for you to stay in various places during certain types of the years. If you want to do long-term housing, that's your business. You can very well do that. If you decide to do something for like a year or so, you're probably in Portugal, it's usually like similar to the States, first and last month's rent and a security deposit. If you want to feel safer, whatever apartment you find, maybe just do 6 months security 6 months deposit, just so you have a little buffer in case things change, in case you may want a larger apartment, or I don't know, something happens, you'll have that buffer. So that amount will be determined on all the amenities and bedrooms and square footage you want in your apartment. So if you go on websites like Idealista and some other ones, I'll put in the description box, you can kind of get a better idea as to how much the apartments will be monthly based on the square footage, the amount of rooms, and the things that you want. Now, depending on what country you come from, there's going to be a transportation cost to get to Portugal, and just in case, you might want the transportation cost to get out of Portugal. Depending on what visa you are applying for, the visa immigration office may want to see that you are leaving the country at a certain date, so you want to consider in saving up for that. I don't know what your ticket would be, but just go ahead and reach that. Use Google Flights or Skyscanner or whatever you use to get flights, to see how much it'll be to get a ticket from where you're located to Portugal. Because I live pretty much in the city of Lisbon, I'm able to walk to a lot of the things that are important to me. And I mean, the grocery store is walking distance, everything's walking distance. If I'm feeling like I need some exercise, I can walk all the way downtown. So in the city of Lisbon, you don't really need a car. So as far as transportation, there's a couple ways you can do that. The public transportation in Lisbon, Portugal is very efficient. They have amazing subways and buses. And the great thing is if you are just getting a card to get on the train, that's just $1.50. If you need to purchase the card, it's $2. And I'll put a link in the description that further breaks down the transportation costs if you're using public transit. So be sure to check that out. But also you can purchase, it's a hard card that basically lets you on the ferry, the train, the bus for 30 bucks, 30 euros inside of the municipality and 40 bucks outside. So you can budget about $40 on the high end if you want to do like unlimited transportation on the public transit system. If you want to rent a car, I have no idea how much it costs, but in the description box I will put a link that gives you more information on renting a car in Lisbon. I do not own a car because I live in the city of Lisbon, but if you're watching this and you're in Portugal and you have a car, really curious, can you put in the comments how much it costs to have a car, like maybe monthly costs, like insurance and gas? I know the gas is expensive here, so that part of transportation with a car I am not knowledgeable yet, but when I find out I'll let you know. Okay, food. Here's a hard area because I like really love food, and you can find really high-end restaurants and you'll end up spending a lot of money, or you can find really, like, you know, inexpensive options for food. So now I do have a grocery haul of when I go to like the organic market, so I'll try to insert that video if I can find it so you can see what the price was and all the groceries I was able to receive. Okay, now the visa, and I will do a separate video on the visa, but I do want to give you some information. So to get a visa in Portugal, the application fee is 80 euros. Depending on what visa you apply for, and understand depending on what country you come from, your nationality and things like that are going to be different as to what visa you have to apply for. I'm a US citizen and my money does not come from Portugal, so because I have income outside of Portugal, I'm able to apply for the long stay D5 visa. So with the application fee, there are also certain things that they require you to do. Let me just go over that really quickly. So again, this is going to change based on the visa you have to apply for. I'll do a separate video specifically on visas. I just want you to kind of understand some of the costs associated with the actual move to Portugal. So you're going to have to get 2 color photographs, and that's going to be for your visa. You're going to have to show some type of proof of accommodations, whether that's you already booked the Airbnb or your short-term rental, or if you're, you know, going to school, whatever. You need to show that you have proof that you have accommodations there. So consider that in your cost, because however much you need to save is to show that you actually have booked where you're going to stay. So for proof of accommodations, you want to show whether you did Airbnb or another form of short-term housing. You have to show that that's already been booked and you've already paid for it. They're also going to want a criminal record certificate. So mine was done again as a US citizen of the FBI. The FBI does this. You can't open the envelope. So the FBI, when you do your criminal certificate or whatever it's called, I'll put the right name of it somewhere, you have to pay to get that done. That's usually going to include fingerprints. So I did mine at the post office. I cannot remember how much it cost. I'll try to find that out. I did mine at the post office and they basically did it electronically. If you get your fingerprints done at the post office, it happens immediately. Do not go to the post office before you fill it out on the FBI's website. Okay, do not, because if you go to the post office, they need a number that the post office, that the FBI is going to send to said post office. So if you don't do that step first, when you go to the post office to get your electronic fingerprints, it's not going to work. Okay, so once the FBI gets your electronic fingerprints, they will send something out in an envelope that basically says what the results are. Now, what I was instructed by the organization that helped me get my visa, they told me to not open this envelope. If I open the envelope, then I have to get it notarized and do a whole bunch of other stuff. So she just told me, don't open the envelope. When you bring in your application, go ahead and just, you know, give them the envelope with that. I applied for my visa in Washington, D.C. I did not apply in Lisbon. And the reason why I did that, because I live in D.C., so everything's kind of right there. But I didn't speak the language, and I wanted to be sure that I was doing things correctly. And also, I didn't know what to do, because the websites that I'm going to give you at the bottom of this, it'll tell you about the visas, but to be honest, it was hard to navigate through. So that's why I want to spend a little bit more time in another video talking about visas. And of course, lastly, you're going to need your proof of travel health insurance, and that's going to range between $350 to $450 for the year, and that is required when you are doing most of the visas that you have to sign up for. So let's look at this and see what the final estimate numbers are for moving to Portugal. Okay, folks, that is it. So if you have any questions, you know the routine. Just put them in the comments and I will return them. And until next time, I'll see you again.